Hey guys, how's it going? Matt from Foul Ball Productions here. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. I hope that you're doing well. I'm doing great, thanks. This is another episode of my ongoing coverage of every single episode of The Expanse. And what are you chuckling at there, Jake? I'm just appreciating one of my favorite shows. I don't know.
Oh man, the chat is already alive and raring and rocking and ready to go.
Exactly as it should be.
Heck yeah! Wow, well, a lot of people in the room already. Great. Well, thank you. Welcome back, chat. All you lovely people. See a lot of the regulars. Essentia Dildo, Tracy, Mary G. Elvis is here. It's great. Gang's all here to hear.
Hail to the Brigadier.
Duct Tape is in there, and we do have a little surprise for you guys tonight. A special little guest. So put your hands together. Give him a nice warm Foul Ball Productions welcome. Gary from Nerdrotic. Hey,
Harry.
Just in time, right?
Yes, sir.
Excellent.
Just in time. How's it going, man?
Going good. How you guys doing?
Pretty good, man. Pretty good.
Very good.
Just ready to kick it off.
Indeed, man. Indeed.
As they say, getting better all the time. We will be outside of work in minutes.
Yeah. Well, I guess we should just get into it. What'd you guys think?
So, I've got a little illustration I wanted to show you, Matt. That I got a little bit of an.
I got it.
Yeah. So I got a little bit of an inside source that showed me what the everybody's plans were for the final 4 episodes of The Expanse.
What do you mean?
So this is the storyboard for episodes 7 to 9.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty accurate. I think it's pretty accurate.
Okay.
Jake,
and then
I was thinking about while I was watching this, dude. I got to give you 100% credit. You nailed it. Last week, Gary, Jake was saying that it was Cassanvar was the reason why the whole second half of this season feels so disjointed and weird. Yes, you're 100% right, dude.
All right, and this is the storyboard for episode 10.
Okay.
Yeah, it most definitely had to be his Me Too, and they had to extend scenes and cut out a major thing, which I bet you they're going to put into next season.
Yeah, I think we were saying that. I think they probably went back and reshot because a lot of the episodes, a lot of the scenes, like it's 2 people talking and nothing really happening, and it's really like low, like small scale shots and small scale setups, and it's just like it all felt wrong. And Jake postulated that it had to do with Cassanvar, and the more I think about it, I'm like, yeah, dude. Especially the way this all ended with him dying, they obviously were built like they built towards that. That wasn't the plan. So it's like, yeah,
the scene was awful.
Oh, I forgot.
No, I think that I was trying to pause it to see if they actually CG'd and reused another scene, because I think they just fired his ass and got him out of there. See what they does kind of fit, and if they would have shot for it, it takes the place of another death in the book that happens in that book. All right,
does it happen like that?
Yeah, somebody strokes out. So okay. I mean, like it's a character that, well, I mean, like I don't know how much I want to say to spoil things, but
we're through that book.
Fred Johnson
Full
died.
Spoilers.
He died from stroking out in the books. He didn't get assassinated. Bull, the character who was in there obviously to replace Alex, died 2 books ago.
Okay.
And well, drummer was in all those mechanical legs. Remember that? She took all of Bull's stuff. That was Bull's stuff from that book.
Yeah, it was. God, it was just so transparent that they just destroyed the whole story arc around the firing of Cassanvar.
Completely. Completely, because he wasn't supposed to die, right? And it's like it was so painfully dragged out episode after episode. They're not moving the story forward. It didn't feel like the show at all. And what was even more frustrating for me was at the end when they start getting into all the Ringgate stuff. I'm like, wow, that's really interesting. It's too bad it took us 10 episodes to fucking get there.
Where the
would have loved to have
fuck had that been?
Would have loved to have seen more of that. Too bad it took
Lost in the first episode and nothing since.
I'm sharing this out on my Twitter. Give me just a moment.
Oh, thanks, Gary.
Oh, thanks, Gary.
Appreciate it, my good man.
Well, yeah, that whole everything setting up, mentioning Admiral Duarte. Finally, I mean, like he actually has a scene in the book with Alex that they could have put in that would have really given a lot of context to what they're going towards now, because they're going to speed everything up. Yeah, and yeah, they're going towards some like epic shit. Like this is especially. I mean, like honestly, if you're into the books, I would absolutely skip half of book 6, all of book 7, pretty much half of book 8. Holden is completely taken out of the story. He's just I mean, he's still there, but he's in the background. Like they just and it becomes Naomi's story all of a sudden.
Dude, 100%, and that's what they're doing in this show, and it's so transparent and so irritating. It was just like, I remember when Bull was talking to Holden, I was like, what? Oh, I didn't even know what Holden's motivation was in that moment. I kind of was like lost on why they were even there. What was I was just like, oh, right, because we haven't focused on this character for a whole season.
We just got 3 episodes worth of Holden story arc in like 10 minutes in episode 10.
Yeah, 100%. And I also like, I don't know if this is just me, but like when the whole big space battle happened, I honestly wasn't clear on what had just transpired. Like there was all these missiles going up and blowing up things, and then like the 2 ships are like sliding by each other, and the Roci shooting it, but not. I really was completely lost, and it like all ended like, oh, that's over. I was like,
yeah.
We could have used a serious dose of the map that keeps the audience in the game.
Yes. Oh, big time.
No, they did something on screen. They showed it, but it was really confusing. They needed something on screen showing who was approaching who. And all I saw was circles and triangles. And I didn't know whose triangle was the triangle. And they've been so much better at that. Like something happened. Obviously, it's the Alex stuff, but then something else happened. It might have been the Koof. I don't know what, but like it's.
There were a couple of scenes in this episode that felt like the Expanse, but that was about it.
Listen, this is a brutal comment from Yeet to Oit Dude. This season was a total waste of time. Best book, worst season. Wow, that's pretty brutal indictment.
That it is. I've been building up this book for people on my channel for what, 3 years?
At least.
This is the one. They're not going to mess this one up. And this is the one where if all you had to do was follow the map of the book. It's almost like more comfortable gutting the books and taking the best part out of it. I don't know. There was obviously problems behind the scenes.
Yeah.
But I think Jake's theory is 100%. I think that's what it is. I think he got Me Too'd, and then they're like scrambling. They rewrote the season to like go in this direction so they could have their moment in the sun where they're really virtuous.
Yeah.
I don't know what he did, by the way. I had somebody come in my chat or come in the chat on the Inquisition and say that he was, really inappropriate stuff. We'll just say that like not. And honestly, I don't think sending a D pic to a fan is worth getting fired from a show from. I think it's gross and like weird, but I think that happens all the time. And you you sideline a show because one of your actors sent a D pic. So what? And listen, everybody in Hollywood's done weird stuff. It's just how much they've gotten or who's gotten caught. That's all. That's all it is. But if he did horrible stuff with like underage people, he should be gone. Fired. Goodbye.
I haven't done my diligence on it. There's a whole Reddit thread of all the accusations. I guess the thing that kind of sticks out to me is just the number of accusations. I mean, that doesn't mean it's right, but that's a random coincidence. Plus, I know this director here in LA that worked with him or like tried to work with him, and she's a girl, and she like asked him to take a look at a script to maybe be a part of a project, and he was just interested in her sexually, which that's not a crime. There's nothing wrong with that. But she's like, it just sounds like in line with his character based on my experience. And she was balanced about her accusation there.
I heard there was receipts on the accusations. I did hear there was receipts. So
yeah, I mean, it's disappointing. But the thing is, look, I was thinking about it. Like, so what? Okay, so you get rid of him. You don't owe anybody anything. It's not like you gave him the layup to go abuse women. You didn't know it was happening. It was just a total mistake. It sucks that it happened, and we're all gonna have to move on. But Naren Shankar and Ty Frenick, they don't owe us anything. It's not their responsibility to fix these problems. Like, why even address? I don't get it. Like, why is that their responsibility?
Yeah.
Am I wrong? Is that crazy? I don't know. Like, it just seems like, why even, like, okay, do it, deal with it, fire him, but don't twist the nature of the show to like represent women better. It's like, why were you guys misogynist before, and now you saw the light? Like, I don't get it.
I can completely understand, if you felt like you can't go on with the guy because the allegations are that serious, that you go ahead and do this altered kill him off scene. Or you recast his ass, maybe even better, recast him. But to completely gut the entire second half of your season just to make sure he's not on screen is so fucking stupid.
What would you think of recasting, Gary?
Ooh, I almost think it would be better because Alex is a pretty damn big part of the show. And listen, people have done this all the time before. Killing him off and replacing him with Bull just feels hollow. And they were put in a bad situation. I understand, but yeah, it already feels like it doesn't feel like the Expanse anymore, and it hasn't.
I agree. I firmly agree. I said that since episode 7. It was to borrow a phrase of yours. It was all feelings and spaceships. And it was just Naomi talking about her feelings with Philip, talking about her feelings with Sin, talking about her feelings with Marcos. It was going on for like a half hour. I'm like, the story hasn't moved one iota. And I've covered every single episode of this show on my channel, and I've gone over it with a fine-tooth comb. And the one thing that they do really well is plotting. The stories are fluid. They move. Nothing drags. There's no indulgent scenes almost ever. And the fact that this was like a whole episode of indulgence, I was like, something's off. And it lost its way. And I feel like optimistically, it's just a huge detour that they had to do for PR's sake. And they'll get back in with the show next season. I don't know.
Yep. Yeah. My girlfriend had a rather unsurprising reaction to this particular episode. And it really looked just like this, man.
And that was your look? Yeah.
Yeah. That was the two of us watching the end of this season. I mean, straight up.
What'd you guys think of Bull using the S word?
That was
skinny. That'll never be said on this ship again.
Episodes 7 to 9 were
going to war with these people.
They were slow and shitty. Episode 10 preached at me in a way I have not been preached at since the first female doctor, played by Jodie Whittaker, whom Gary lovingly calls Dr. Karen. I haven't been preached at like that since Jodie.
It's also a fucking mess. Like, so many different things are happening. They're trying to cover so much ground. The battle was confusing. The whole thing with Naomi is like, oh my God, man, I've been watching this woman suffer for like 6 episodes straight. It's brutal. It's just like, it's exhausting to witness. And then the whole thing with Avasarala, and then they bring the team back together, and this is what Marcos is afraid of. We're like, what? And then like at the end, it's like they finally get into the interesting part of the story. And I was just like, that was like, it was like someone broke a pane of glass and then tried to glue it back together.
What we got in episode 10 was supposed to be episodes 8, 9, and 10.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like when the ship goes through the barrier, when we finally find out that Mars is behind this all the way, and it's a guy named Admiral Duarte who is going to turn into like the big bad, like the Thanos. And that Mars, that there's this really and there's this really psychotic belief in Mars, this military belief that they're just a military society, an empire, and they have figured out how to. They found old proto-molecule machinery that they've been able to turn on and rebuild. Yeah, I would have liked to have known that about episode 6, not in the last 5 seconds of.
What the fuck was that? I was like,
it's terrible, and
we really needed to see Naomi scraping ice shavings off of a pipe 7 times.
I mean, I like if I had to watch her just like again, I was like, this is so incredibly brutal. Also, like the cycle of her like having like emotional breakdowns and then epiphanies was just like, how many times are you going to use this gimmick?
I got to go back and count, but it was a lot.
Quite a few.
Oh my God. I cannot believe they did it like well into this episode. I'm like, Jesus, Joseph and Mary, stop. I just like, please just die of asphyxiation at this point. This was the best part in the book. It was 1 chapter and it was all leading up to her doing her little signs. That was her moment, not the breathing and all the fucking fixing the shit in their ship. Her moment was, I'm going to kill myself to go save my friends who are trying to save me right now because they're coming to an exploding ship. And it's all supposed to happen like this, not like over weeks.
Yeah.
Weeks.
Yeah.
And it was even before the spaceship stuff. Sorry to cut you off there, Jake, but even before the spaceship stuff, it was just so brutal anyway. Like all the things going on with Philip and Marcos and how emotional everything was and just the overwrought thing. I don't know. I feel like it was almost like you said, like the book shift for Naomi. It's like almost felt like the show shifted for Dominique Tipper so she could have like her big, like, you know, emotional sequences and maybe an Emmy nomination and like to make it all about, you know, that type of stuff is just like,
yeah, it
you
just
did not do it by stretching it over all of those episodes, all of that meat stretched into its little bitty pieces.
Yeah. Alex has a point of view chapter in book 9. Like it's really somebody put up the chat earlier. Like he's really, really important to the story. So all of a sudden you got to like Bull's part of the team.
Hey, Bull and Peaches.
Yeah. And yeah, Peaches is hard enough to take in the books. It's hard enough to take in the book. And it's more like they really miscast Peaches.
Really?
Peaches was supposed to be a dainty, skinny little Mao, not you know, this one's like sure of herself and stuff. No, Peaches is crazy. She's crazy. She just had a bunch of, you know, and she's coming out of it, but she's dying. She's dying the whole time.
Really?
Yeah.
One of the few scenes in this episode that actually felt like the Expanse to me was Amos getting Peaches on the Roci.
Yeah, that was right out of the books.
Yeah.
That was like
that was funny. That felt like the show. It felt like nonsense though. It was just like, okay, like that was supposed to be some cathartic moment. It's like it took us 10 episodes to reconnect these characters for like a joke. It's like, all right, I mean, it's funny,
well, there should have been Amos reuniting with the Rocinante should have been this huge moment, and it was just nothing, right? And it's taken away because of the death of Alex dying, like I guess they had to get him out of there. It's like, couldn't you have killed him at the end or so? That was the worst death. I mean, I couldn't believe it when he was dead. I was like, oh, they just killed him like that. That must have been the day he got fired. And I told him the day he got fired. And I went back and paused, like I said, I'm like, did he shoot that scene or did they just pause a scene looking at the screen? And it looks like they paused the scene. Like that's not him.
He was a still frame, and they used that and one ADR bit of dialogue earlier in the episode to talk about stroking out.
Yep. Yeah. That was all post-production, the blood floating around where he stroked out. That was it almost makes me wonder if they changed Fred's death scene now that I hear that's how Fred was supposed to die. Even earlier in the season, they made a change to accommodate killing him.
I know the actor who plays Fred's in the Orville, so that's taken away his time. I think he's in another thing too, but he dies. It's been a while since I read the book. I think it's an escape from the station from Tycho. They're escaping from Tycho and they're doing a hard burn and he strokes out. Something like that.
There's a few people in the chat who are not having a very good reaction to this breakdown of the show, and I can't say I blame you. I mean,
we're right there with them.
Yeah, it's just the difference I think with this one is that I'm conditioned now to watch my things be destroyed by intersectional feminism and agenda, and so when it showed up in this one, I was like, oh, here it is. It wasn't like, it was still hard. It hurt, you know, but it wasn't the same. It was like, oh, okay, the show has made the switch. This is what they're doing now. Like, I don't know, you know, because I am a tad optimistic for the second season just because of how interesting the last like 45 seconds of the show was. I was like, that's the story. That's what I like about The Expanse. So maybe now they can get back to the show now that the whole Cassanvar issue is kind of out of the way. But even if they don't, it's like I've been through this so many times. I'm like, all right, well, this one's intersectional now, and then just move on. It's like, you know, the first time you have a breakup, it sucks, but you get used to it after a while.
Yeah. So how about the emasculation of Drummer though? I mean, she did.
I didn't like her whole thing, and that was just made up from scratch. And I love Karagi. I think she's great.
I do. Is it Gee? Is that how it's pronounced? Gee?
Karagi or G, one of the two. I just say Gee until somebody corrects me.
Yeah.
Authority.
They didn't even let her kill Corral.
You called that too, by the way, Jake. Good call, man. You absolutely called that.
Oh, that was fucked up.
As soon as you said that, I was like, oh no, I think you're right. It never even dawned on me. And as soon as you said that, I was like, oh, dude. That's exactly what they're going to do. And they didn't do it quite the way you said, but it was the same idea. Like someone kind of rescuing Karagi, not giving her that cathartic moment. I guess, you know, she ordered the ship to fire on the other ship. So that was like her big comeuppance. But Carrie, when you were saying in like the Inquisition, just shoot her in the face. I'm like, God, just shoot her in the fucking face already.
Over 3 episodes.
For 3 episodes when we knew that was going to happen eventually.
Yeah, and then it was nameless female crewman.
Yeah, I mean, I recognized her. I mean, she stood out to me because she was pretty cute, but you know, because she has that pixie look. But yeah, I guess she was the one who was maybe like a little gray about the whole Marcos thing. So I guess giving her a moment. But I was thinking like, what an empty moment that was. How there was no arc. It wasn't like she started off like meek and unafraid and not able to stand up for herself, and then it pays off here. It was just like, yeah, I guess it might as well be her. It's kind of like Arya killing the Night King. I was like, okay, I mean, I guess so. Someone had to do it. It just nothing connected with the story.
Does anyone even know that character's name?
No idea.
All of my notes are on my computer. I'm sorry I didn't get to pull them out in the car.
If you can't remember it, that makes my point.
I actually go through this stuff in order to remember this so that I'm able to actually refer to it later because, 49. But sorry, Gary, I can't blame my my stream mind and my lapses on my youth. But the thing is that, yeah, I've got a few of the names in my head, but she is so underused. She is like one of the smallest of the family of the Drummer family, the Drummer faction, if you will.
Okay, it was Michio Pa, but I didn't even.
Whatever. Okay, great. What else does she do? What else is her contribution? It's so what? Like it's a completely empty thing. I mean, it just happened. I think it's girl power. You know,
in the arguments, she is the only one that speaks up against her friend there, Bertold. Bertold is the guy who is the guy she stood up against, but she also stood up against him in the argument on the family ship before they met.
Yeah.
Yeah, but she's still an ancillary character. If she got sucked out of an airlock a few episodes ago, I wouldn't really care. You know what I mean? It's like it doesn't have a big impact.
So that was Michio Pa. Oh God, she's such a terrible character in the book. Pa is the worst character in the book. So was that the sprite girl? Because Michio Pa is supposed to be Japanese. So
that's weird.
Yeah, I mean, that's weird. Okay, yeah,
she could be. I'm expecting the people in the chat will support us on this because I can't.
I just want to address T Down Under's comment here that The Expanse was a bright light in the dark of all this woke shite. I like how that rhymes. I agree, dude. That was my thought all along. I was like, this is the only show that like had writers and stuff that were completely woke and like, you know, in the Matrix, but still managed to keep it out of the show. You know, they did it the way you'd like it to be done. You'd like, you know, representation without the, you know, the applause behind it, you know, just doing it to do it.
Oh, you got that in your face tonight though, Matt.
Yeah, they went so hard in the other direction, and it's really so disappointing because, wow, I just thought, you know, I thought maybe they would weather the storm, but it almost wouldn't make sense that they would weather the storm. I think if they did, it would almost like make them stand out too much, you know, like that would get Gary, make them a target.
Hey Gary, can you bring up the tweet from Frank of what he mentioned, just to remind us of where he stands?
Oh, he
exactly. Why is my Twitter not in dark mode anymore? That's embarrassing.
The glories of computing.
My Twitter's not on dark mode anymore. That's bizarre. Hang on, I can just pull that up right. Yeah, he threw up a tweet. Just thought to remind everybody. Well, for one, the James S.A. Corey Twitter account is not anything anybody should follow.
Here.
Does not interact with fans in a positive manner all the times. Very freaking thin-skinned. Very salty. Very, very salty.
And super snarky with like this kind of like, I've got it all figured out kind of attitude.
Yeah. And how long ago was that?
Not that long. It was this week, wasn't it?
It was this week. Now I can't.
Oh shit! I put Gary on the spot.
No, I used to not tweet at all. It used to be so easy to find my stuff, and now it's like blah 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 all the time now. But what he essentially said was, "Boy, I hope they don't figure out how much feminism and wokeness we wrote into this show."
Yeah, snarky tone,
which is absolutely bullshit, because it was all about them writing their messages in a completely understandable mode that we didn't have to have an issue with, that we were actually behind them. There were no messages. There were no preaching. There was no preaching.
Not until tonight.
It was almost like it was almost like we're beyond this. You know, we've moved beyond this. Like women can be presidents, and it's like it's so far down the road, you don't acknowledge it. Like, that's what I thought was so brilliant about it. And I mean, it couldn't have a more multicultural cast. It's got to have the most diverse cast on TV. And you know, it has all these, like, there's something there for everybody. And for them to like just derail this whole thing and go on this like feminist journey for a little while. And then also like a show that's so beloved by a really passionate core group of fans that, by the way, helps save it. You're just going to slip past this little feminist message and we're not going to notice. We're not going to be like, hey, what the fuck is that? We don't like this.
Yeah, there it is.
Oh, yeah, good. I hope they never realize how much wokeness and feminism we put in the show. So condescending.
Yep. And it just didn't need to be done. It's such a shame. That's why I just said adios, dickhead. You know, you were getting through. This is, like you said, this is how you get your message across, by not preaching, by just your story and, you know, showing empathy for your viewer, showing that you don't have any disdain. But Hollywood can't hide their disdain for half or most of their audience all the time now. And that's why they're entering in this new era where they're going to find it very difficult to navigate the shark-infested waters of social media, because you're now in the customer service business, and these people have been protected by gatekeepers and multiple gatekeepers, and people like Cassanvar and James S.A. Corey, who, you know, Cassanvar is a creep to women. James S.A. Corey is a dick to his paying customer. While one is worse than the other, they're both bad. They're both fucking bad, and they're both bad for business.
Yes.
And we'll see how much work he gets from here on out, you know, because
probably nothing, I would assume.
No.
And the last part of that statement is what Hollywood is just can't seem to learn, is that these things are bad for business. I mean, you had me. You had my girlfriend, right? We watched every goddamn episode of The Expanse, and I was screaming at the top of my lungs that this was the best, not just the best sci-fi show on television, but the best show on television.
I've been saying that since I discovered it.
And in 4 episodes, You lost me.
You're right. They just destroyed like years and years of goodwill like that. Oh my God.
I was willing to go on my channel and shill for a frickin' billionaire company because they're one good show. And it turns into this.
I mean, I'll tell you what.
Those are my teasers. That's where I started. Yeah. I was so on about the start of this show at the beginning of this season that I started putting those teasers out because I wanted to sell this. I wanted to tell more people about it because I had not done that much prior to this. But it's all like, well, I guess, yeah, that's the way the world turns.
I mean, it's the only thing that's really got any real traction on my channel. So I mean, I can't be too dismissive of it, but no, I mean, it's like this guy, Bernard Scott, says, yeah, I'm kind of done too. And it's like, yeah, I kind of feel like if it's just going to go down that direction, I have no problem emotionally departing from it. I don't need to have my heart broken over and over and over again. Like once I can feel that this is where you're going, it's like, okay, I'm out. You know, it's like the whole Star Wars thing. It's like, I don't need to watch these things and get emotionally involved. I mean, Gary, I think you said it last night, like you didn't even finish the Mandalorian season 2. It's like, neither did I. I'm not wrapped up in it. I don't care. And to that point though, like that whole thing with Kathleen Kennedy, and it was like what you were talking about with the woke stuff. It's like somehow they always think they're going to slip it by and we're not going to notice. Don't you feel that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, you know, we're talking about the Expanse, but Star Wars is the worst of them all because they're definitively heading in a direction that people are just not looking at right now. And like, I'm not going to shame them. If you want to jump on the hope train and hope away, that's great. And I hope I'm wrong, but
that'd be great.
That would be great. But I just, Disney's, yeah, it's just not going to happen. There's too many signs that people are just not looking at right now.
Yeah.
Getting 6 months ago because they saw Luke and they went crazy, and that's great.
That's great.
But like with other stuff, and listen, there's, you know, where there's multiple episodes of The Expanse. There's decades of Star Trek. There's decades of Doctor Who. I can understand hanging on to that one for, you know, like this is like been going on for years and years and years, and there's stories everywhere. And that, but with a show like this, I'm okay with just being gone with. Yeah. Cause I'm tired. I'm not going to waste my time on it. There's other new things I can go check out. There's books out there that I haven't read. You know, I dived into the Witcher book series. I'm loving the hell out of it. Yeah, it's great. So there's always other things. I've got 50,000 comics I haven't read. There, you know, I don't need Star Wars. They need us. The Expanse needs us, and they're I don't know. First time they're acting like they don't. You know, and it's maybe because they have one season left, but it's always been a really positive vibe aside from just James S.A. Corey.
Yeah, like their social media presence is toxic. Like Dominique Tipper, I had to unfollow her. She was horrible during the summer with all the BLM stuff. I mean, it was impossible. It was just so like she felt so anxious and aggressive. I was like, I can't even watch this. But it's like that aside, like the show has got great fan goodwill. Like it's always seemed like a show that respected the fan and, you know, put that in the story and kept their agenda separate. So for it to come out in this show, and especially this show that was rescued by a fan effort, it's just like it's like a slap in the face.
Yeah. It's a betrayal.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, we had the initial space battle. So we were watching it on the big 4K TV in the living room. Did the ships look off to you guys tonight, or was that just a factor of I had it on the 4K TV and maybe I was streaming at 1080?
It looked okay. The effects felt off from their normal effects, even from earlier in the season. Like this definitely felt rushed again, but this is like the third season in a row. I've excused it the last two because they weren't given enough episodes, but you know, like honestly, there was no excuse to rush this season, especially when you waste so much time. So that was 100%. Everything felt off in the last episode. Really,
everything felt off. Like I think that thing with me, I don't know if the special effects were good or not, but my issue was I just didn't really have like a good grasp on what was going on and what was at stake and where everything was. I knew we had to rescue, you know, a Naomi, and then the ships were after the Rocinante, but like, I just didn't have like a good feeling of of the universe, of the world. It wasn't fleshed out. It wasn't vivid like it normally is. So I guess that's why I just felt disjointed and disconnected from everything that happened. I was just kind of watching it transpire, but I wasn't connected with the story.
Everything happened so fast that I don't know how you could connect to it, right? So, I mean, let's break down really quick everything that happened tonight.
Let's do it.
So, Naomi space jumps again, okay, as after she manages to get the ship maneuvering, she space jumps out of there and she's doing her signals to try to warn Alex and Bobbie away from the ship. They see her signals, and then, you know, she's dying out there in a free float in space in her vac suit as she runs out of oxygen. She gets grabbed by Bobbie. Bobbie's radioing back to the Razorback, and Alex is fucking dead.
Right. And a lot of that could have been really cool and interesting because, you know, I'll give it this. It was creatively shot. Like the way you just focused on Naomi's face right here. The camera was right there. And then you just heard Bobbie like through the, you know, like just from Naomi's perspective, just you couldn't hear her voice. We could hear like the sound of her voice and the clicking and the that was all interesting. And if we didn't have to watch Naomi suffer in this little prison, you know, for 3 episodes and all I think it would have been more cathartic. It would have been more interesting, especially if maybe we were detached from Naomi for a while, you know, and then like jump back in and this moment happened. It would be like this rush of feeling, but you know, I knew Naomi wasn't going to die. So it was just like, okay, how are they going to get her out of this? You know, it just it didn't have any kind of catharsis for me. It was just kind of like, all right, like I'm really tired of watching Dominique Tipper, like, you know, act in pain. It's
yeah. I mean, really that scene was good and well done. Okay. I mean, I would give him that particular stretch of scene was good and well done.
Mm-hmm.
Then we've got kind of the crazy messiness happening with the Roci getting intercepted by Drummer's ships. And then you've also got a Free Navy heavy frigate and a
Serio Mall, and the Koto was the smaller one.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And then you get this hectic battle scene begins as the Roci's coming in, and Holden basically says that, you know, he doesn't expect to win. He's expecting the ship to get blown to shit, and he's just trying to buy time for his family.
Yeah, and it felt so manufactured because like the whole season focused around Naomi and her trying to get out of that situation, and now it's switched and Holden's going to sacrifice himself and Bull, and I guess that girl on the ship with him, the reporter, had no problem with it because she didn't speak up about, hey, I'm not really sure I want to go on a suicide mission. She was just kind of like, I'm down, I guess. And you know, it just was very disjointing. It didn't feel like, oh, it had all been leading to this. It was just like, well, I guess this is happening now.
Yeah. And then the Roci engages in battle, and Drummer, you know, finally tries to kill Corral unsuccessfully, but she manages to fire some missiles to take out one of the Free Navy MCRN ships, right?
The Koto.
Yeah, the Koto. And you've got this, you know, again, really, really hectic battle that happens really, really fast in just a crash of activity. And they somehow take the heavy frigate out too.
Actually, her first act is to fire on her own ship. She fires on the ship that Oksana and Geralt, the other guy, are on. And that's when Bull brings up the idea, wait, they're shooting at each other. We should take advantage of this. But like you said, if you're not invested, Matt, if you're not invested in it and it's too busy. And I mean, I had to go over it going like, okay, this is going on here. This is going on here. It'll lose you. It loses you. And then it loses the meaning when you're not caring about what's going on. It's just, oh, furball. I guess everything's happening.
It just didn't feel like it was earned. You know, like every other space battle. Remember back like in season 1 or 2 when they go to that space station and Alex keeps running that simulation because there's that stealth ship on the backside and they have to keep planning. You knew exactly what the stakes were. You knew exactly where all the moving parts were. You knew what was happening. And as you watched it, the drama unfolded. It was amazing. It was like a rush and it was so exciting. When it was over, you're like, oh my God, I can't believe it just fucking happened. This, I was just like, what is happening? I don't know what I'm looking at.
Yeah. It was weird. Okay, so the aesthetic choice for when they rescued Naomi was just to have it from her perspective, and they finally pulled out and showed she was doing like space language to say don't approach the ship, right?
Yeah.
So they approach the ship. Alex Kamal is talking, and he goes, "Okay, I'm going to do this docking procedure," and Bobbie goes, "Wait." And then they stop. So they don't do the crazy docking procedure that he said you could stroke out from.
Right.
So I don't know what he did to stroke out, because Bobbie had to get in her suit, leave the ship, and then the ship had to be stationary. So he must have been still alive when she was suiting up, and then he just stroked out afterwards. I guess that could happen because when Fred did it, it was during a burn. It was during a hard burn. That's when you stroke out.
So in the events of the show, essentially when they first get the first notice, you find out that they're going to go even faster in order to get to the Chetzemoka, and his final thing just before you see their gimbal chairs move, he talks about putting the spurs to the ship, so they're going faster. The only idea that makes this work is the idea that they were so juiced, they were juiced to the gills, and he was riding it out. By the end, something happens, aneurysm, the juice bursts a blood vessel in his brain, and he's done.
Yeah, but Light M says right here, they explain it's the anti-G drug. I'd really like to dispel this for 1 second, simply because a production or a script explains something, that doesn't mean it's earned or it works. That's what's also could be considered an excuse. And I'm fairly certain that that's what you could call this. It's an excuse. It's a reason. Okay, they explain. It's not explained. He's like, they use this as an opportunity to just fix the problem.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I could have missed it. Did they say it was the anti-G drug in the show?
Well, Bobbie made a comment about how they were juiced up heavily.
Yeah.
And they'd be at risk of stroking out. That did come up a few minutes.
That was the ADR line. Nobody is on screen when that thing is said, and you hear her say that. And it's like, oh.
Yeah.
And like I said,
it was jolting. It was terrible. It was absolutely terrible, his death. I mean, it was just like, what? And it could have been fine. You could have made it shocking. I mean, they've done that before. And that, but it was just, it felt like he got fired that day. That's what it felt like.
They could have gone really cool with this. They could have altered the book story. So they gave Naomi her big deal in episode 8, right? Where she's got her torture episode, which, Dominique acted well. Okay. So give her that. And then let's remember that she is an unbelievable engineer. So scrap the messages in space portion where she jumps out and Bobbie grabs her out of space. Scrap that. She finds a way to temporarily disable the bombs on the ship long enough for Alex to dock and get her. And then you use the fact that, they were talking about this incredibly dangerous docking procedure could cause him to stroke out, and have him fucking stroke out.
Yeah, show him stroking out.
Yeah, give him a moment. That's why I think it's a weird choice that they even killed him, because it almost elevates like Cass into like, now it's sanctimonious, now it's important, now it's like sacred. And it's like, if you just recast him, then I think it would have diffused all of this stuff. You could have still had the moment, and then we wouldn't also have to celebrate. It's weird. We're like celebrating a guy accused of all these like crimes. Like the show that fired him is doing it. It's like, it's awkward. It's like, just recast him. Like, what is this?
They're trying to honor the character and not the man, maybe. I don't know. I mean, they recast Arjun, so why not Alex at this point?
Dario Naharis was recast.
Happens all the time.
It worked.
Happens all the time. It would have been awkward, but after an episode, you got over it, just like you did with Arjun. I was like, and they really like, that was a slow roll with that reveal too. You're just like, who the hell is this guy she's talking to? And then halfway through the episode, they're like, oh, it's Arjun. You're like, it is? Oh, okay.
Yeah. But
the other actor was better. The first actor, the guy who was in the Orville, it was so much better.
Yeah. Way better. It felt like he loved, they really were in love. I'll also say too, Did it strike anyone else as weird the way they revealed that Arjuna was dead? Like when she just says it without like getting like information about it. I thought that was random and weird. I was like, we didn't see
very
her, like,
non-contact. Yeah.
Yeah. And like she didn't take it in and like have a private moment. Like it's just like, hey, by the way, I found out he's dead. It's like, is this like a tactic, or is he really dead? Like I was honestly thrown off by that.
I mean, I assume he's really dead.
The way this is done could actually be like, oh no, he's alive, but it's up in the air, and it's weak.
Hold on, I want to duct tape. It's a PG rated show. They can't show anyone stroking out, dude. I have seen so many people get murdered on this show. Bloody, like Shed in like episode 4 or whatever gets his head blown off, and you see it
blown up by a rail gun.
Yeah.
And hey, let's think back to season 1, man. Julie Mao. I mean, yeah, she was covered in proto molecule, but she was butt naked.
Brutal.
And then the guy evaporated going in the ring gate.
Yeah,
like evaporated.
And it's not a
No, they weren't afraid. It was budgetary that held back from the vomit zombies that were in the book. That would have been great if they would have put the vomit zombies. But
it was more brutal in the book, dude. Like all that stuff. Like when I listened to the audiobook of it, and it was like, whoa, this is way darker. There's like human hands like crawling around, and like all like human viscera is like what was surrounding the core of the ship. I was like, that's a lot darker. That's like being in hell, man. I don't know. Maybe blue stuff better.
No, there's a whole scene where there's a spider walking that's made out of bones and people, like a vertebrae and somebody's head, like the thing, right? And there's goop going down the hallway that's all gooped up people.
Ugh.
And they show a little bit of that in the very beginning when she screams, when Mao screams, and that
guy's like
head kind of going in. There was a lot of that. It was pretty gross. It's good.
That sounds dope, but I think that might have been a little brutal for TV.
Yeah. But it's the book is it's horrifying what happens, what the proto-molecule does to people, because it gets cells with useful parts and it makes it useful to build something. So
yeah, that's so interesting. Like the whole proto-molecule thing is such a fascinating concept. It was such a brilliant way that it paid off in the first 3 seasons, the first 3 books. That it goes from this thing that just breaks people down into this soup, and then it serves its purpose and has this giant gate. And you're like, whoa! Oh, I want to see all these planets. This is such an interesting world. They're like, no, don't worry about that. There's that Belter guy, and he's causing trouble. It's like, I really want to see the exoplanets, like really bad. Like, no, not yet. We have to wait. Like, why? You said why? Let's go.
Yeah, and then and so all that like action that we just discussed, though, it was like the first 20 minutes of the show.
Yeah.
Tonight, right? And then we get like an interlude.
Yep. Yeah. A little
right?
reunion moment.
We get a dinner party.
Yes. Hey,
celebrating at a dinner party, like Earth is in shambles. I mean, tell me what. There's supposed to be storms going on down there, and it's like nuclear winter going on, and like Earth barely survived, and it's not like Ganymede.
This is Marcos. Marcos didn't want this, so we have to do it.
Oh, yeah. He doesn't want us being together.
No. Yeah. Now,
what?
I like my ladies, and I like looking at ladies' bodies. Okay. Did anyone else just get like shocked to hell at that dress Naomi was wearing at this fancy dinner party? Did that just seem really out of fucking place?
Like the big V-neck with the spider web in her fishnets in the middle.
Yeah.
It drew my eye.
It drew my eye.
I'm not going to pretend it didn't draw my eye either, but
I don't know why they're at a fancy dinner party when Earth is suffering. I mean, like the optics of that would be horrible, right?
You're right.
One person gets a picture of that, like, look at the freaking president living it up on Luna while we're all eating each other down here.
Oh, you're right, dude. Especially the president who just had a military coup that just kind of squeaked by. That just happened real quick. It's like, wait.
This was the problem I had in the book that carries through, is the gravity of, for one, it wasn't millions of people killed. It was billions of people killed on Mars and on Earth. And they just kind of like forget about that. And it's almost sociopathic. I was starting to worry about the writers. I'm like, are they going to have any characters talking about all the billions of people? They kept on talking about the Belcher's cause. I'm like, they're Nazis now. They killed billions of people for their cause.
Yeah.
Innocent people, like that. Nobody should ever feel sorry for these people again. Like, never again. Sorry. And you should be bombing their palace station and everything. They should evaporate it. If they're going to be cheering for the death of billions. I mean, more children died on Earth than there are Belters in space. Yeah. So like, but they don't bring it up. And I'm like, and then Michio Pa, that character I brought up, they like, she's not going to be a major part. So they make her like Jesus Christ. And she was part of Anaros's team like the whole time. And all of a sudden they just made her Jesus Christ. And I'm like, that's what I'm like, something's wrong here. This is weird. Like there's a detachment going on here because the gravity of losing that many people should be on it's on Naomi's mind and nobody else's.
Yeah. 100%. I see. I thought they were going for like a real subversive play at first because, I mean, I think we can all agree that when they dropped those first 3 episodes, they were unbelievable.
Yep.
I was like, wow, what a start. This might be the best season of TV ever. And so then when Marcos is a mass murderer, and then he's basically talking like identity politics talking points and the reasons why he's like doing this war. I was like, is this some kind of like subversive, like underhanded, like kind of attack at like ideologues and groupthink? I was like, is that what they're going for? This is pretty bold if that's what they're going for. And then no, not at all. They just went in a completely different direction. I was like, oh, shit.
Yeah. So after the dinner party though, right? So we got a dinner party in the middle of the episode, our nice little interlude. It's like an intermission. Get a little break from the action, and then we start going 100 miles an hour again, right? There's a cut to black, and it almost looked like the end of the episode.
Honestly, totally.
Right, and you get Marco delivering a monologue, and I
just wanted to address this real quick, especially while we got Gary here. What the fuck is Philip's point of view? Can someone please explain this to me?
Why was he packing that gun?
Well, does he love Naomi? Does he hate Naomi? Is he on Marco's side? Is he not? Who is he? What is he?
He's starting to turn. So what's going on in his head that you don't know because they haven't conveyed it in the show is he's starting to feel the gravity of killing millions of people.
Okay.
It's starting to hit him because Naomi was part of there's my wife. She's in the chat. What's up, Mrs. Nerdrotic? Naomi was part of a terrorist thing earlier, and one of her bombs killed a bunch of people, and it freaked her out, and that's why she left Marco. And she tried to take the babies because he had her make a bomb that killed a bunch of people before, and that's why she left. Did any of you get that part of that in the story for this season?
No. Oh my God. That's one of my girlfriend's biggest complaints about Naomi. Is that she hates her because she feels like she just completely abandoned her kid to a psychopath, right? So no, you do not know that she left out of guilt over her own bomb killing thousands of people. You don't know it.
Okay, but I will say this as just someone who's a fan of the show that I feel like Naomi, like I didn't actually need that explicitly told to me. I knew that Naomi was caught up because she basically says like, in prior seasons about why she's not into Fred Johnson, like why she stays away from the OPA, even though she's like a belter with pride. Like it would have been nice to have been told like this. That'd be a really interesting backstory. But I always assume Marcos did something and made her do something really bad. And that's why, I always assumed it was something like that.
Yeah. So the boy, Philippe, is he's starting to see that his dad, there's a very important line that Naomi said earlier is like, he'd want you to die for him, but would he die for you? That kind of stuff is spinning around in his head right now. So he's flipping.
Yeah. You see,
it's just, yeah.
It was almost like a red herring for the episode itself, though, when you see Philippe in his bedroom prepping his gun, right? And you're watching him do that, and I'm seeing it. I'm saying, oh, is he good? He's not really going to kill Marco right now, is he? Because that's what's running through your head is that he must be thinking about.
A lot of it was just for me, just the depiction things, though, because it was like last episode when Marcos tells Philip that she didn't die, she left us. He got angry. I was like, what? Why? Like, your mom's alive, who you care about, but you're concerned that this woman who was like most likely going to die on this ship tried to escape. What is that emotional reaction? I don't understand. And so it's like watching him go. I'm like, what does Philip want? Does he want to be empathetic to Naomi? Does he want to be Marcos? Does he want, like, I just honestly, I'm like lost. And I felt like it was such a big part of the show. And they're just sort of like, well, I just feel like they abandoned like describing it.
Yeah.
They abandoned a lot of things because they rushed it, because they cut half for the Me Too guy. It's so obvious. Yeah. And they abandoned this whole backstory, right, where they're investigating the weapons being sold to the Martians and figuring out that the Martians were actually behind this. So they just decided to make it a reveal at the end when we all kind of figured it out. And again, you left out like Duarte out of this, and maybe because they're too cheap to cast, they want to get a big time actor to play Admiral Duarte. Well, why not get him now, have him be in a scene and set it up? Because they used to do that kind of stuff.
Sure.
Yes.
Like Bezos doesn't have any money.
Right.
So, and that I don't know how they're going to do this, because it looks like they're going to try to wrap up, because the 6th book, there's a giant time jump after it. There's a giant time jump. So the 6th book,
right.
They don't, and I mean, Earth is fucked. Earth and Mars are done. So they have to, like, what's left of the OPA that's sympathetic to Earth, Mars, and Earth have to align now. They have to align.
That's in book 6.
Yeah, and that all gets like set up, and then, people start going through the ring gates, and like, this is stuff they're not going to have time to tell. And there's other planets out there. There's planets out there that, they mentioned it in this one. There's one gate that is now cut off from everybody else. A Martian faction went through that gate, and there's a planet there that they wanted, and you saw a little bit of it.
Yep.
Remember the name Laconia.
Yep. The Laconia. Just remember that name. And it doesn't really get it. They start resolving it after the time jump, after the huge time jump. So they're probably going to cut out the time jump.
Yeah. And
get right to, but it's still like Holden's barely in it after this.
I always thought that was interesting, like with this whole woke battle. I was like, it's interesting that this show has like a white male lead as like the hero and the captain and the anchor. It's like, well, they took care of that. Not interesting anymore, because he's not the captain.
I have to give them that, them getting, for lack of a better word, dusted when they went through the gate. I liked that. So. Yeah,
they hinted with Fred Johnson. Holden showed him like that. This is what we saw.
Yeah,
and then they didn't mention it the whole time. But that's what they're kind of investigating throughout this book and the next. And it's a big deal. It's a big deal.
It's so fascinating. Like, it's so interesting. I just feel like it's when season 3 ended, I was like, oh my God, like, the world of this universe is going to expand in every direction. It's going to be so fascinating. It's going to be all these different planets. Like, it almost like it just exploded outwards. And then the 4th season was inconsistent, but now the 5th season, it almost feels smaller than previous seasons. And even inside the universe that they're exploring, the solar system, I feel like I never got a feeling of what was going on Earth or Mars or the Belt. All I saw were just these little corners of the world, and they were so disjointed and disconnected. It just doesn't feel like the show I fell in love with. For the whole season.
I mean, we talked about it a couple weeks ago. Where has Mars been? Mars is a character in this show. Mars itself is a character, and it's been just gone since episode 4.
That storyline was removed
until the last 5 minutes of the finale.
Yeah.
Suddenly Mars is back, and everything we've missed the past 6 episodes, they slammed it into the last 5 minutes of the show.
And you know what,
guys? You remember Mars? Look, here they are again.
You know why they're a factor in this, and it doesn't feel like to me they explained it well enough. Was Mars economy and everything crashed because once the gates opened up, people didn't have to wait for Mars to terraform anymore. So their whole system was falling apart. It doesn't really, and they showed that through Alex visiting in the books, right? You really get a feel for like for the first time, Mars has always had the better economy than Earth.
Yes.
Because the right amount of people, and all of a sudden there were storefronts that were for lease, and
it's such an interesting world development. It was such great like storytelling. Like, oh, that makes perfect sense. They don't need to terraform. All the gates are out open. So yeah, that makes sense. And then you saw a little bit of it with Bobbie, with becoming like involved in organized crime. That was really fascinating. And then that just completely all went away.
Yeah, and there's Belters heading out, and then there's the whole factor that, and they mentioned it in this, is like Belters can't live on planets. Right? Yes, Belters who can't live on planets, and they're like, they don't need us anymore. They're just flat out not, and which isn't true. They could have, so they felt like their whole world, livelihood was threatened too, and that's what led to Marcos doing it. It just doesn't feel like they explained it enough. It's really well explained in the book.
Yeah,
but in the show.
Prior seasons, it was incredibly well explained. Like, remember, like in the first season when they're on series and you've got Miller, like you have this feeling of like the crowd, like you have a feeling of what people on series are feeling, what the politics of this era are. And this is just, it's completely abandoned here. I didn't feel like I was in touch with what anyone's like grander feelings of this situation were. It just felt like I felt like completely left out of this story, this whole season, or at least the second half.
Well, you always had Holden as this weird moral compass, right? And he wasn't there to be the weird moral compass and make his, somewhat irrational Holden decisions. Yeah. And I know he's not a lot of people's favorite character, but he's the most important character to this whole series. And you could tell he was missing. It was a huge hole left in it. And then aside from, Alex, Cassanvar was good as Alex. And none of these characters, again, look anything like they do in the book. Alex is old. He's bald. He's got a little boiler. Amos is much older and not pretty at all. Imagine with Batista with his head shaved. That's what Amos looks like. Yeah, and Naomi's supposed to be really tall and skinny with lots of hair.
She's a belter.
Yeah. That was also kind of not there. I mean, I guess they gave him a moment, but I didn't really feel like there was that romantic rush into each other's arms, like relief, like I've been separated by people that I was in a relationship with and then reconnected over like a trauma, like I had to like and it like you just can't let go of each other. You're just embracing so deeply, and they're just kind of having a conversation, sort of a casual conversation. It was like, this is really not cathartic. Like I'm not feeling anything.
And in the wake of Alex's death, no less, right? So the death, I mean, the on-screen presentation of it was so god-awful. And I think somebody in the chat, and I forget who pointed it out, but the scene where we get the image of him stroked out, that it was definitely a still because the lights weren't flashing. Somebody in the chat pointed that out earlier, right? So you've got this just sort of on-screen awful death of Alex, and then during the dinner party interlude and the reunion at Luna, like it's barely fucking acknowledged by the characters at all. You get this quick thing with Holden finally has some lines in this season, and he said, and it amounts to his wife's going to take care of the burial, right? That's kind of the extent of the acknowledgement. And you get a little guilt from Naomi, and it lasts all of 45 seconds on screen.
It's so weird because it almost comes across like they're reluctantly retiring this character, and they're forced into a corner. It's like such an awkward position to take. Like, you're preaching feminism, but then at the same time, you're giving this sort of what feels like a mixed message that, you don't want this guy to go. It's like, this is so clunky. I don't even know what your point of view is.
Yeah. And you get one other kind of brief acknowledgement of his death when Amos gets back to the ship and brings Peaches on board. But that's it.
That's it. Not going to get brought up again. And one of the biggest characters in the show. That's not, it'll be fine. Bull can just replace him. Nobody will notice in a year.
He already has, drinking out of his cup.
Yep. which was a little profane. I thought
that was disturbing. Yeah, everything else was so short. Everything else was so mediocre, and
felt like a dig to Cassanvar.
Yeah,
that's what it felt like. It felt like a petty little dig to Cassanvar, no matter what. I mean, even if he is a creep.
That's what I mean. Like, what is their stance on the whole thing? It just came across really clunky. And I think the one thing we can definitely take away though is like, at least, I mean, you could potentially take this away that they're over this shit and they're going to get back into good storytelling next season.
They could.
I mean, like I'm being optimistic.
I'm not expecting it, but they could. There is the opportunity to do that. Because
it just felt like for the last how long that sequence was, they're like, and then all this stuff, and you're like, yeah, I know, that's what I was interested in, and it just kind of felt like they had, like it was like an obligatory like woke detour, and now they're back on telling the story. I'm not sure, but it's kind of what it felt like to me.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely all called it that Bull is going to be the replacement for Alex. I mean, we all. That was clear by episode 4. Bull's the guy, right?
Lightem Am's got a question. Is Bull in the books at all? Yes. He's a huge character. In fact, he's pretty much like Kamina is essentially like a portion of Bull, but Bull's kind of been removed. Gary would know more than me with the books because I've only did the first 3. But he is a huge character. In fact, like I think the 3rd book opens up with his point of view of going to work for Fred Johnson, as I recall.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a major character in that book that they left out completely, and they gave a lot of his storyline to Drummer,
which I thought worked because I fucking love Drummer.
Yep. I'm looking here to see because, like, so there is talk of there's possible life after the Expanse, but it's not going to be on Amazon. Amazon's done with the Expanse.
And their 3rd network.
They're not going to get another network. The show's too expensive. They're not going to get it. So. What concerns me is they said, oh, there's definitely more room for storytelling after season 6. It's like, oh, you better end this thing.
Who said that?
Naren Shankar.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because didn't like James S.A. Corey, didn't they say that they were kind of done with it? Like once season 6 is over, they're pretty much out, right? Did I read that somewhere?
No, they said that they could be done with it after season 6, but they see it as a pause,
a logical conclusion, or at least a pause.
I thought, like, because someone was asking them flat out if they had the rights to do more with it, and they're like, "Yeah, I don't know. Amazon does, but we're not involved." Something like that. It was kind of a guy. I got the impression that they've been living with this universe for like the better part of 20 years, and they're over it, and they're just done.
I mean, I could understand that.
That's just my impression, though. It's like I don't have facts to back that up. But so what's the movie rumors then, Gary? What is that? I'm really curious.
It's just hearsay from the actors. The production company wants to try to sell the series to somebody else, and they could adapt the books with the time jump. But the problem is that that would not end season 6 cleanly at all. People would be pissed at the ending
because they'd have to like leave it open-ended for the story.
Wide open. Like you essentially
have to pull up Farscape.
Something that's resolved, but like another issue is as wide open, and it would be frustrating as hell. You would feel so teased after that. It would be almost like if they canceled it at season 3, like they were originally going to do.
Yeah. Which, looking back on it, maybe they should have. Because season 4 was kind of underwhelming for me, and now season 5 is like straight up bad. Where I'm like, oh wow, like you guys are tripping over your dick here. You're making all these like bad mistakes. Or it's not even like, even if you don't care about the politics implications, it's just not a good season of TV. It's lots of just talking about nothing. It's not exciting. It's not well executed. So it's almost like maybe it should have been like, oh, what could have been, and we all could have talked about it and loved it, like Firefly or something like that. Like, oh, it was this perfect little thing in a vacuum or something. Because I don't know, it's almost feeling like a mistake.
Yeah, well, I mean, let's pick that apart a little bit, though, right? So season 5, the first half of season 5 was one of the best seasons of television I've ever seen on TV. Okay, the second half of season 5, I think it's really clear what we saw. I stand by my statement that what we saw as episodes 7, 8, and 9 were supposed to be just episode 7. And then what we saw as episode 10, and let's think about the 3 distinct parts that we saw in the season finale. All right, there was the rescue of Naomi and the battle between the Roci and the Belter ships, okay? Then we've got our dinner party interlude and our reunion on Luna. And then you've got the battle at the ring.
That part definitely felt like it should have been longer.
Right? So that was supposed to be episodes 8, 9, and 10, except for the Cassanvar shit. And that, if you had done that the way it was originally intended, you could have had the best full season of television we've ever seen.
Right. Yeah, I mean, my opinion is that they rewrote, reshot, and retooled the whole second half, and I think it fits with the way, like, so much of the, if you look at the second half, like, just from like a production point of view, like, the setups are really simple. It's generally just 2 people in a room talking. There's not a lot of special effects. There's not a lot of props. There's no action, no squibs, no nothing like that, and the camera just kind of moves like back and forth. It's really simple. So I think that would go in line with that theory that they just did reshoots and quick rewrites. Also, that the story doesn't move, that they're just kind of talking about their feelings and shit. It kind of makes sense with that theory too. So either way, it sucks, but I'm pretty like that makes more sense from a logical point of view to me.
Yeah.
A lot would have made more sense than Dominic Tipper sucking air for 3 episodes in a row. That was it was a bit much, and it really
been edited so far down.
Yeah,
so right.
Yeah, you know, it sucks watching your show go south, folks. I remember not too long ago when I was reviewing the long night of disappointment for Game of Thrones with Doomcock, and people were just like, "No, it's fine. Night King being killed by Arya just in one shot, no problem. Show's still fine." You know, and then it took them 3 episodes to figure out that it was the biggest disaster in television history. It's better to just recognize it early, move on. There's other things. Go see Resident Alien. There's Orville out there. Like, this could still recover next season. They could fix it.
It could.
With the Cassanvar ship behind them, they could refocus on telling the same type of story they've been telling. And this could turn around into a good season 6. Like, I'm not done with the show, but I am prepared to chronicle its demise if it keeps going the way it did in episodes 7 to 10.
Yeah, like, it's not proof your girlfriend's cheating on you, but she's definitely texting some dude.
Well, Jake D's opinion is shared by many people in the chat right now, so this is a common thing. I think people are saying, people are of that mind. Now that we have Cassanvar behind us, we can move on.
You're gonna miss
and hopefully
it's not going to be the same.
No.
Like that.
No. He was important. He
was very important. The Indian guy with the Texas accent. He was the comic relief.
Yep, 100%.
Yeah, he was the Han Solo.
And I think if history's taught us anything, when people get like a taste of postulating and proselytizing their woke agenda, they generally don't stop at step 1. They keep going. They like it. It makes them feel important. So I feel like it would be really shocking if they just went back to the way they used to tell a story after they had their moment of telling us all how to think and feel.
Yeah. I mean, am I expecting them to get back in stride and season 6 to be more like the first half of season 5? Am I expecting it? At this point, no.
Right.
Is it possible?
Totally.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it is possible. And I think like that last bit there leaves the door open that it could be possible, and it could just get back to where we want it to be. So yeah. I'm not ruling it out. You know, it's just like, it's like, to use the Game of Thrones analogy. I mean, once what's her name kills Arya kills the Night King, you knew nothing good could come of it after that. Like, it was impossible. This I don't feel is quite that dire, but I definitely feel like there's red flags all over this thing now. And if it does go, you know, all the way down, I wouldn't be shocked.
Yeah. The opportunity's there to recover, though. So
well, the way they made it sound at the end is it sounds to me like they're going to skip the time jump. It does, because there's like one little line of dialogue going, you saw the big proto-molecule ship.
Yes.
Things are coming along fine. It's going ahead of schedule. I think that was saying we're not going to do the time jump. There's a reason they do the time jump. I don't like the reason. It's bad for the characters, but there's a reason for it, because you have to build something and it takes 30 years to build this thing, right? So they're going to cut out the 30 years. And there's other ways to do it. You could just say, I figured out the proto-molecule and it just built it for me.
Totally.
Yeah. Which would be in line with what we've seen in the show.
Yep.
Yeah. There's leaps a lot in this show. I mean, how does the Epstein drive work? I don't know. Neither do the writers. So, okay, I can accept it. You know what I mean? Like, look, and also you change your whole friggin' story to make it like this boring, drab thing. I think you can change it to make it more interesting if you wanted.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's not like it's sacred, obviously. You don't feel that way.
No, there's a bunch that, as a matter of fact, what's left in the books, they can make a season out of TV out of, because there's a lot of wasted. There's new characters that you don't care about. They started out so well. They would introduce a new character each time, give them a POV, and they worked. Some didn't. None were as good as Miller. Will ever be as good as Miller.
Yeah.
Bull was pretty good, but then you can cut out all those characters and just have the crew of the Rocinante and the big bad. And I think that would be enough.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see just how deeply they're going to integrate Bull into the crew. I mean, he's clearly the new Alex, at least in terms of being the pilot of the ship.
Can I just say he's not very likable? Like, he just kind of is like saying really crass things all the time and getting shut down. And that's like his whole purpose of existing. Like, I don't like him as a character. So,
because I do.
he doesn't seem to have any like dynamic quality. Like, like when anyone would say something stupid in the show, like there was like, I felt like that was the brilliance of their writing, was everything was dynamic. There was arc in every moment, and every character had like a humanity to them that they would grow and change when things happened to him. Bull, like, he just seems kind of like one note. He's like, yeah, I'm going to make bad military decisions and say crass things. That's kind of it. It's like, all right. I mean, this is the new Alex. Jesus. Okay.
Yep. I miss Ashford. Ashford was such a good character.
Oh God, I loved Ashford.
Great. And what an arc too with him when he starts in, you hate him and he's just busting Kamina's balls and you're just like, you motherfucker. And then you end up loving him by the end and he has that sacrifice moment. Oh, good stuff. Good stuff. Yeah. I mean, we were talking about it early on.
Sorry, silent there. I was just remembering better things.
No, I think we all were just felt that because we were talking early on in this season. I was thinking, wow, it's going to be really interesting to watch a season of The Expanse where there is a villain that will be like dealt with and defeated in one season of TV. Like, I thought that was really interesting because it was always kind of very big. It was like sort of Mal was the problem, but kind of so was Mars and so was the molecule. It's kind of all over the place. It was just very big. Where this was like, okay, it's just Marcos. We have to deal with Marco. And like, then they didn't. And I'm like, wait, what? Like, it was set up so well and it was moving so swiftly and things were stacking up and all the pieces were moving. And this is so exciting and devastating, like great. And then just nothing.
Well, they didn't world build. They still have to world build. Like, you're establishing the Free Navy. Okay, show me how big they are. Where are all the belters? You had one little team up of 5 captains, and that's supposed to tell me that the entire belt go to Palace Station. Something,
Ceres.
you know.
Ceres. We all have a connection with Ceres.
Yeah, I mean, show me the belters uniting. I needed to see that. It just felt too small, you know. Mm-hmm. I needed more Mars and a lot less Drummer waiting to shoot somebody in the face that she for freaking episodes at a time.
So out of character too. She's such a like badass and like takes action and doesn't take shit lying down. And like for her to just be impotent and also never really get her moment, it's just kind of not. I don't know.
Or how about that? Okay, because it was noticeable. Amos, right before they take off from Earth, has a sit down conversation with that person from Baltimore who we heard 2 words from before that, and we get a life story about it. Life was hard for me on Baltimore, and now it's all over. We're going out in space. For one, that should have been something between him and Timmy. Why did we have a conversation with that character?
We didn't need it. And also, I want to call something that I said last week. They didn't address the fact that Peaches got that guy's entire crew killed because they wouldn't take down those cops. And he's just like, hey, that was really fun working with you. It was fun to have everyone close to you massacred because of a terrible tactical decision. That was fun for you.
I'm done killing people.
There was another. There was another one, and I didn't. You mentioned that last week, Matt, and I did not remember this. I did not put it in sequence. When they come in and you see the aftermath, the thing that you mentioned, that it's like we don't get to see that. We don't get to see her taking out some more of these bad guys who are making their second way in. Mm-hmm. Actually, you get that point where Eric, the guy from Baltimore, Eric says, I'm gonna have to be nicer to her from now on. And it's like, oh, you wanted that recovery. That was basically it. That was basically it. It was in the same episode. And it was like,
you're right.
Oh my word.
Because Gary, we were saying like this doesn't make sense if Eric isn't mad at Peaches for getting his whole team killed. And so we're like, well, if it doesn't pay off next episode, that's indicative of shitty writing. And I get Draco's point out, oh, they already did do that. They already nipped it in the bud. It was like, you dicks.
If they already did it and you missed it, it wasn't delivered.
You didn't see it. You didn't get it.
Bad writing. That is bad writing because it's not respecting the
directing.
Character. Yeah,
everything.
I think that's a victim of what they did to the final 4 episodes. It all revolves around what they did to Cassanvar. Every piece of what went wrong at the end of this season is all about Cass.
Yeah, I think you're right, dude. I honestly didn't think about that, but once you said that, the gears started turning. I was like, I think you're right, man. Because it's like it's the only thing that makes any sense. I don't know how it could be so perfect and then such a clusterfuck.
Kill him halfway through the season. Then that's all they had to do. That's what I was expecting them to do. I knew he was going to die. Mm-hmm. It's like kill him halfway through the season. Make it, and you could make it like a great jumping off point and like revenge and there's a million emotional things you could have done instead of doing it at the end and drawing everything out.
And we've already seen Bobbie fly the Razorback, so we don't even need him for that whole sequence. And then it could have been this great girl power moment, like you guys love to portray, of Bobbie going to save Naomi. It was all sitting there right for you guys.
They feel personally responsible for having that guy on the set for 4 years, and they feel like we need to make up for this, like in the narrative and everywhere, for Cassanvar's behavior that they are not responsible for. Like nobody's responsible for his behavior other than Cassanvar.
I mean, you've got a great out on killing off Alex if that's what your plan, right? When he is burning the shit out of the Razorback when they're trying to get away from the Martian ships that got passed to the Free Navy, right? And when he dumped the core, there is your opportunity to kill him right there. Take him down in a blaze of glory, escaping the Free Navy. And then you've got a great problem for Bobbie to deal with.
But you know what the problem is? They probably already shot all those sequences of him going like them rescuing, remember they attacked the other Belter ship or whatever that whole sequence was. They already had that shot. So how do you get around that issue? Like he couldn't have died right. It would make sense from a writing point of view. But remember, everything was shot before all the allegations came out. So unless they shot the season twice, that would be really tough.
Yeah.
They could have died planting the bomb. He could have died. Something goes wrong with planting the bomb on the ship. After the burn, after being caught there, he was doing a very dangerous spacewalk, planning that bomb, making sure that took care. He had to get back to the other ship and get pulled inside by Bobbie.
I still just think you recast him. I don't know. I just think that's the time way to do it. It's like it's acting like it's not real.
It took me a couple episodes. I'm like, that's bull.
That's bull.
Like that was out of left field,
So there's some fans of this show, man, that are so sharp. Like people were talking about that, like in one of the chats, and I was like, oh, I didn't even put that together. Like, they don't miss a detail. Like, there have been people talking about the fact that there was a blue plume of the proto-molecule missile going in the other direction since it happened. And I was like, you guys noticed that shit? That is really observable.
They noticed it, and I had to go back, and this is why I showed it to those people who were on the stream last week. I'm going like, yeah, you guys found that. I didn't see it. I think these guys didn't see it. Well, Gary might have seen it, but but the thing is that the members of the chat, they're going, "Oh yeah, I saw that." We got Elvis.
Tracy,
Elvis in the chat was like,
Tracy is a mega fan, and she notices everything.
Yes, Tracy is excellent.
Did these allegations? Okay, so they went down during filming or after filming?
After, because the whole season 5, they announced that it was finished shooting before season 4 even got released.
Then Bull had to be reshoots because he was there to replace Cassanvar. So they reshot all of that to insert him into the story. Why introduce Bull out of nowhere?
Yeah,
unless you're going to replace, he's going to replace Cassanvar.
Maybe that's why his character is so underwritten and everything he's in is so clunky.
He probably knew before the allegations went out that he was trouble.
It makes more sense because there was some knitting being done with putting the Bull character in. He was in the top episode. He was in the cargo container when they were going to do the sting. They could have done it with another character, but they shoehorned him in instead and made him some kind of key into it. And then just all the scenes on the Roci, which were just this setup, this setup, this setup.
But to Gary's point of them maybe maybe knowing about it prior, like that, maybe that's why it's such a severe overcorrection, because maybe they did like hear the allegation, because apparently it was someone on the crew as well had made a complaint about it, and so maybe they ignored that and now they feel guilty. And they're trying to like absolve themselves of responsibility.
Yeah.
Maybe they originally hired Bull to stand in for more Fred Johnson stuff, who was not going to be in the show other than to get killed.
Could be. Something we haven't gotten into yet, and it's something I want to get your guys' opinion on.
Sure.
So, Monica, who's a character that I like.
Yeah.
Don't misunderstand. I like her, but nobody except Monica was able to figure out and notice the proto-molecule missile that got away from the Zemea. And she doesn't know jack shit about space battles. She doesn't know a damn thing about what they're doing, what they've been involved in, other than she's got the sneaking suspicion that the Zemea didn't have the proto-molecule on it when they blew it up, which of course we all knew, because there's no way proto-molecule was getting away, or was not going to get away from that incident, right?
Yeah, no way.
But Monica, Nancy Drews her way clumsily into discovering that the proto-molecule gets away. And I mean, did that bother anybody else that this totally inexperienced, has no idea about space combat or space anything, just
TV reporter?
Yeah,
but in all of those setup scenes aboard the Rocinante, she's the one with a lot of the input to those conversations that like turns the conversation. She's the one who notices the thing, and then all of a sudden it's like, and then, but she's the one that does that in all of those setup scenes aboard the Roci.
I 100% had an issue with it, and it just felt like, oh, her and Bobbie are gonna have like it's no more girl power. It just felt like the last few episodes were just all girl power. Like all the girls were making the important decisions. They stood up to the bad guys. Like the one bad belter was on Kamina's ship was a dude. It just felt like it was just so ham-fisted with all this stuff. So honestly, it's just like, yeah, I mean, that's just in line with the style of this show now. Is that like, oh, the girls figured it out because they're like smarter than us, you know?
Yeah.
Well, when you were talking, Matt, you've been talking all season about, or you've been bringing up these points several times during the season because you've been sensitive to it. And my point of view, I was willing to accept some of the things because in my mind, this was This was Frank and Abraham putting in the things that they wanted to. In the whole thing about that's one reason I wanted when we started talking about it earlier, have Gary bring up that tweet, because it was always there. There was always some level of this material being added to the show. But the thing is that, except on a sometimes surface, sometimes deeper level, which you noticed, Matt, I maybe even Jake, you noticed it and you didn't speak up as loudly as Matt did, because we would often hear Matt saying these things that, oh, maybe without saying it in those words, there was a suspicious amount of women. But the thing is that he would say that, and then I would say, yeah, you do have a point, because they're doing these things.
Yeah.
Well, it just got more and more examples of it. And Monica is one of the most obvious examples, because she's a journalist. She's got some enhancements for her trade, but beyond that, there's no reason she would be the one to turn those conversations every single time, except she is the tool of the writers for the feminist message in those scenes.
Yeah. Now, I will point out, a few people in the chat have mentioned this, and I think it's fair. Now, we get introduced to her. She's putting together a documentary and an investigative report and digging on the Roci, right? So, I mean, that's how we got introduced to her in the last season. So it's certainly not out of character for her to be digging and investigating, right? But where it lost me was in doing battle analysis. You know what I mean? I mean, that's where it was like beyond where she should be kind of capable of putting it together.
And it was so tacked on. I mean, it was just so tacked on. It wasn't like she'd been investigating this anomaly for several episodes and just needed like Bobbie to clear up one point. It was just out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And it was like, yeah, I was doing inventory. Weapons. I'm a quick learner. I figured it out.
Figured it out. Also, like, she almost just died like a few hours ago. I guess she's over that trauma, so much so that she's just like, doing some office work, just doing some clerical stuff, cleaning up her desk.
Yeah.
Let me ask a question, Gary. Who figured that out in the book?
Oh, the proto-molecule?
Yeah.
It didn't go down like that.
Oh.
How'd it go down?
It didn't go down like that. I'm trying to rack in my brain. Maybe Mr. Nerdrotic.
That makes more sense too, because when we were watching it, I was like, that just felt so lackluster, that whole encounter with the Roci and that other ship. It just felt like, why would that even happen? And it happened so quick, and they just wiped out all the missiles. I was like, all right, that wasn't exciting. I was like, that makes sense. Yeah.
Away. And she just got away. I think it just, once it was taken out of Tycho, that was it. There was no chasing it after that. It was gone.
Got away.
Yeah. Pretty sure it was gone. And it was in and then it was just chasing around. Well, it was surviving. The book is surviving. So it's like Amos getting back from Earth, and Alex and Bobbie, saving Naomi, Holden coming in while he's doing the background investigation of what is behind. There's like little problems going through the gate, we'll just say, that you saw. And that continues in 6. There's something else that I can't ruin any of this, but
okay, so the scene didn't even happen. So the battle,
I can't say I remember.
This is a way,
a couple of years, drugs, 80s.
This is a way to waylay the Roci for the entire season. Then.
Bingo. Absolutely.
Yeah. And it gave Bull a great scene to show off his pilot and battle skills.
Kind of.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't do much.
Well, he took out a couple dozen missiles coming at the Roci.
No, I know. I mean, yeah. But I mean, aren't the PDCs automated? Like, you don't have to, they do it automatically, right? Like,
yeah, but he also had to maneuver because some of them broke.
Yeah. Because of losing the one PDC, he had to do some creative flying, and that was supposed to be like, oh, look, he's a flyer.
Yeah, I guess. And I felt nothing.
It wasn't deep. It was very surface. It was not a whole lot to it.
It felt obligatory. It kind of felt like in the later episodes of The Witcher where they just started doing like, oh, we got to have action in this moment, so let them chop people up. That's what it felt like. Just felt like we have to have an action sequence because all we've been getting is fucking Naomi talking about her feelings for 45 minutes. So I guess we have to blow something up. Oy. What a letdown
on
man.
Spaceships.
God damn it! What a fucking letdown. Because I was going in all apprehensive at the beginning of this season, and I was like, man, is this going to be the turn? Is this going to be? And it blew me out of the water. I couldn't believe how good the first 3 episodes were. I was like, I was telling everybody when I started watching it, I was like, my like YouTuber brain started like thinking about like, no, turn that off. Just enjoy your favorite show right now and let it wash over you. It was glorious. And like everyone liked it. And it was universal. And like I heard Gary talking about how much he liked it. I was like, this is the shit. Yes. I can't believe they survived the woke storm. What a glorious thing. And then one like little cracks in the armor. You're like, that was bad. That just was, what's that about? And then it just kept piling. And that just kept growing.
So this is the part they left out. All right. So Monica was investigating the ships disappearing, right? That's what she was there investigating in the book.
Right.
So that's why she was there. It wasn't
ships disappearing through the gate.
The breakaway Martian fleet that showed up to destroy the UN at the end?
No.
That's what she was looking at?
There was already ships disappearing. So the Martian ship that you saw disappear and get eaten like the Langoliers.
Oh, yes. Okay.
That's been happening to certain ships, and they can't figure out the pattern or anything. So her and Holden and she wanted Holden to consult Miller through the protomolecule, and he said, "No, get the hell out of here. That's not how it works." He's gone. And then she gets kind of stuck with him after that.
Honestly, I didn't even understand that ship was supposed to be eaten up there. I didn't get that because I thought that was just a representation of when like Holden says when they cross through the gates that you feel like the angry things or whatever. I thought that's what that was. I didn't know that ship just got destroyed.
So at the end of season 4 with Miller and you saw that Eye of Sauron thing.
Yeah.
That is the big bad, right? That's what killed the engineers of the proto-molecule.
Right.
I think that's, it hasn't been said, but it's been well inferred.
They showed it again at the beginning, and then at the end you saw what happens. That's them. That's they eat. You get paused and you get eaten.
That's rad. That
was a cool scene.
Did you ever read the book Hyperion, Gary?
I have not.
Fucking amazing book. I guess I can't talk about it now because like at the end it's kind of a big spoiler, but it's a similar idea, and I was like, oh wow, I've seen that before. Where there's something in the gate, and that's a great book for everyone. Recommend Dan Simmons, The Hyperion Cantos,
and it's a question that has not been answered yet. What it is? Like the book hasn't come out. We're still waiting for the last book. So
you think they'll answer it?
No idea.
Coming.
Well, they better. They're leading. Well, they didn't even address it until the 8th book, really.
Yeah.
So they have this investigation, then they have the time jump, and then they hint towards it, but they really start addressing it in the 8th book. And then you get, I mean, yeah. So there's a lot of shit to come still. There's a lot of shit to come, and it's not just, yeah. You're going to meet Duarte. If they're going to mention Duarte, they're going to bring him in. So,
yeah.
I mean, it's such a rich world. I mean, save this execution, but there's just so much there, and there's so much that you can explore. There's so much potential for prequels and spinoffs and stuff like that. That like, it would be such a shame if it just kind of fizzles and goes away and just kind of becomes just another kind of sad tale. Because it's so funny. Like I work with a guy and I just got him into The Expanse, and he's not like a nerd. Like he's not into this stuff. Like he just watched it on my recommendation. He's like, it's so good, dude. And that's right when like the season is falling apart. And I feel like, oh man. And like, now I'm shepherding him down to his doom.
Yeah. And Duarte has been mentioned. His name was on Bobbie's iPad.
Well, did she mention his name?
No, but the iPad had his name on it.
Well, okay. I'm not gonna say.
Well, we've got a lot of observant people in the chat, Gary.
At least it doesn't
pointed that out to us.
Well, that's the same level of that's the same level of engagement. The whole thing going on at the ring, which culminated in the ring battle at the end of this episode, was something that Marco was working on in little bits and pieces of episodes all through the season. Yeah. But it was like, what? Okay, something's going on, and they're talking about a thing, but it doesn't. The rest of the show doesn't bear on it, so it's kind of like the little model being built by a child in the corner, and you're going, what the child is doing, and they only show it in a scene every episode, and then suddenly it's a great big castle at the end of the season. But why was he doing it?
I don't know, but
no
I
connection.
would have watched it happen because they had a stealth meteor shower. What? That sounds cool as hell.
That was interesting, wasn't it?
Like to have like explored that and watched like it happen on the ship and them freaking out and like not knowing how they just they just like zoomed right through it. It was like the most interesting part of the past 5 episodes. You just shot through in 30 seconds. Like,
so was supposed to be a whole episode.
Very end, I'm gonna describe from the book what the 2 Martians felt right before they were killed. The crew members become aware of all the granular detail of their immediate universe, down to the individual particles and what is described as a more profound space between them, a vacuum that penetrated them all, a solid fog-like alien presence that is implied to be composed of something other than matter appears on the ship and kills the crew.
Cool. So cool.
You're aware, like uber aware of kind of everything when that happens to you, and then you die.
The point is, you are alive when she starts to eat you.
Yeah.
That's so cool, man. Like, that's the type of stuff that, like, yes, because I think these guys have great ideas, right? The idea of taking the proto-molecule and turning it into like this thing, and like that whole journey of that, and how big and expansive, no pun intended, the world that they've created is. It's like, yeah, they're great at that. Like, it's like, oh, such a letdown. Like, I want to experience your world, you know, like. I love the way they tell stories and the world building. It's so fucking fun. It's just like such a letdown that we didn't really get to have much of it this year.
Yeah, they really should have showed the investigation of the disappearing ships. It would have made it much more creepy. And now you're going to have to rush through this just on one scene. You know, and that's something that the Expanse didn't do before. They didn't have a name on an iPad, or I mean, like they would tell you things, they would show you things.
Yeah, they wouldn't spoon feed you, but it was elegant. I mean, it was you knew what was going on.
The first 2 seasons were dope. They were freaking perfect. The first 2 seasons. They dealt with it. They went over 2 books pretty. They got all the good parts in. I had a debate with Word of Wolf. Remember Word of Wolf when he was on YouTube? You guys ever heard of Word of Wolf?
No, sir.
Be a member of EFAP, an OG member of EFAP.
Oh.
Good kid, smart, genius level 20-something. Wanted to debate me about the Expanse, and I was there to defend the show. And
I forgot
this. Shit. And the books are right. And I'm like, well, you know, my perspective was, if I had read the books first, I might have had the same perspective of him, but I didn't. I'm all, no, I think the show actually improves on the books. And I still do. I still believe that. There's a lot of stuff that the show improves, including like, I'm sure the ladies would agree with me on Amos. Okay. Ladies, you're with me on this one, right? Amos is much prettier.
I agree with you there, Gary.
I wouldn't want to see a Miller with a giant head on this like skinny body that he could barely walk on. It would have been just too weird. But I got to say at this point, Word of Wolf, if you're out there, buddy, you were right, man. You're right. He said this was going to happen.
What did he say? Because what was his argument?
He said his argument was that they are missing all the important parts of the book. And at first, I don't think he had a solid argument. I'm like, nah, you know, they actually did hit all the beats they need to hit in the first 2 seasons. It got tougher for season 3 and really for season 4. And now for season 5, he's right. They're making moronic decisions, and the whole second half of this season was a moronic decision. I don't care if you lost your best actor. Yeah. Like I said, kill him halfway through and then he's out of the picture completely. Yeah. If you need to reshoot stuff, God, you think Amazon, the $1 trillion company that made $100 billion this year, would have been sympathetic that they had to Me Too a guy, right? They're not going to give them a few extra bucks for reshoots? That's not anybody else's fault.
Definitely did some.
They had to.
There were reshoots in this show to deal with that.
They've got a lot of other properties. Not like there's a lot coming out right now. Like, wouldn't you think it would behoove you to make this as excellent as possible, especially how passionate the fan base is? I mean, we were talking about like all the people that watch this, watch our streams, and how detail oriented they are, how obsessed they are with the show. This show is very, very well loved. To take the extra time and the extra money to get it just right, that's an investment that you can't miss. Like, why would you rush it? It's like such a mistake.
I wasn't expecting the show to come out in December. I was surprised when I heard it. I'm like, what? They shot it? Wow. Okay. Cool. And I'm glad they did the weekly thing, but they did it too late. And yeah, it took. I'm not even looking forward to next season, really, at this point, guys. I'm like, I'll watch it, but I'm not like excited because it's just kind of failed at the end. And I was willing to defend it for the last couple of seasons because of all that. But now they're like, they had their feet under them. They have Amazon money. There's no excuse. Shows have lost people all the time and just rallied from it. It's fine. But this was an overcorrection, like you said. And they trumped up the girl characters way too much. And they end up ruining the character. They make you resent the character, character that we loved. That's the reason you go out there, is you have this diverse cast that everybody's rooting for, and you went and you did Naomi and Drummer overkill.
Yeah, Avasarala too, to be honest.
She didn't do. I don't even remember her dropping an F-bomb this season. Like that's what I like. Yeah.
And we were saying, like there's a throwaway line where she's just like, "Oh, Mars is compromised. We can't talk to Mars." It's just like that made Avasarala seem kind of stupid and sort of not as savvy. Like, I always felt like she always had a handle on intelligence. Like that was like her gift of hers. She was like a genius at knowing what to decipher was bullshit and how to get her fingers and stuff. You know, she was very good at that. For her to just be like, "Oh, we're not talking to them," and then it comes and bites them in the ass. It's like kind of makes Avasarala look stupid.
And the whole coup thing was dumb. I don't even like, why did you, I understand that they wanted to have some weird secretary, but like Battlestar Galactica, but like, I would have cut that whole scene out. What was it? What was necessary? It just, did you have an Avasarala scene to have a coup that we didn't see?
I think it was to have an overly aggressive male leader, and you needed a woman to come make the rational decisions.
That's what it felt like to me.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was so clunky and so rushed, and it was like that was a military coup, guys.
It actually had. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It's just like, is Earth okay with this? Is everyone like, yay? Like we just had like these huge attacks, then a new leader got put in power, and then he was disposed, and we're all okay with it. Like, I feel like someone might want to ask some questions. There might be a follow-up.
Isn't it just like the fucking UN, right? Who have their whole planet destroyed, but they're worried about how they look to the rest of everybody else.
Well,
and have a dinner party.
No, the thing is, if we had gotten a better context, I mean, don't get me wrong, we saw destruction on Earth through Amos's eyes, but only in a limited scope. So if we had gotten a better fill-in about the billions with a B who'd been killed by the rocks, then, you know, maybe you get a little more on board with the military coup.
Or it was like had like some time to develop instead of like starting and finishing inside of like 8 minutes of screen time, and then just dealt with is over. Like he's like, "Oh, you're in charge now." It's like, what the hell just happened?
The way that handled was part of the problem, but I thought it was even was another level, because it wasn't just the leader wasn't the bloodthirsty one. The bloodthirsty one was suddenly taking the friend, the Admiral Delgado, and flipping him from in her corner to the bloodthirsty guy who is leading the idea of we need to attack everybody, while one bad male with the other bad male, and easily led the guy that the UN had been handed off to, the guy on the top of the tier, who starts out by he's saying, I'm not the experienced one here. I don't feel like I know this. And he wants her support and her and on their team. And then when he actually gets into and starts making, he makes at least one good decision, and she's congratulating for that. Then he starts being led around by the warmonger, the sudden warmonger. And so you got one bad male and two bad male, and
the thing is,
needs to fix it.
And they didn't even hide it. Sorry to interrupt, Jake. It was they didn't even hide it when they had everyone walk out of the room. It was 3 women and 1 guy. It's like, oh, we fucking get it. We get it.
Yeah,
that's what you're getting at.
The thing is, though, we could have explained those changes in character without busting the budget. So Sentient Dildo calls out in the chat that they didn't have the budget to show us carnage on Earth, unfortunately, right? Which is perhaps a fair call out, right? I can't speak specifically to the budget, but you can explain Delgado's sudden bloodthirst if you give us maybe a 30, 45-second scene of him looking at his communications pad and looking at the devastation on Earth.
Casualties,
sources,
losses of this city, that city, this entire country wiped out.
Or like his family got killed and then he's like out for blood, something like that.
The country that got destroyed could have been his home territory or something like that. Very personal.
It could have been easily explained why he flipped his lid like that, but they didn't. I mean, it wouldn't have even been expensive. You could have done it.
They've shown they are capable of improving.
And I've never felt this show was limited by its budget. I think it's one of the most well-executed shows as far as sets are concerned, costumes, props. I think maybe the special effects next to maybe like a Marvel or something, they're not as excellent, but I never had a problem with them. I always thought everything that they portrayed looked the shit, and it really didn't even matter because the story was so strong. It was all you bought it anyway. So I'm not sure I believe that they didn't have the budget to tell the story they wanted to in their 5th season. I'm sorry, I just don't buy it.
You eventually find out. I mean, because tactically it makes no sense, right? If you've been attacked, your planet has been devastated, you blow the shit out of your enemy. You don't hold back. You're not worried about collateral damage when it's all collateral damage on your planet at that point. Your planet wants blood. They will have your head if they don't get blood. What was explained was they couldn't do anything. They were hamstrung. Their ships they only had a few ships left, and they really couldn't have done anything. And it's a good thing they didn't, because later on you find out it's Mars behind. A big faction of Mars is behind. And as the story goes on, which they didn't explain well in this season, it's muddled. It's muddled as hell. You don't know what Martians to trust. You don't know what Earthers to trust. You don't know who to trust.
Which would have been really interesting to watch. That would have been fascinating.
That was one of that intrigue in the sci-fi setting was the biggest attraction of the show to me.
Yeah, it's brilliant. It's airtight. The intrigue, the story, the mysteries, how compelling it was. I mean, goddamn, I'd rewatch that show I don't know how many times. And even on my 4th or 5th watch through, I'm still caught up in the mystery. Like, it's brilliant. Like, it's genius. You know how good you got to be able to write to keep me still compelled 5 times through? That's pretty powerful.
Yeah, especially how many times. Yeah, I've watched the first season a lot with Miller. I mean, but it's a different show though. Even as high as the quality has been, I still think they put more into it in season 1. I still think their season 1 budget was probably their biggest budget of them all. Sci-Fi was setting out to rebrand their channel, right? So they put out a bunch of new shows, and they put a bunch of look at the sets on The Expanse. Look at the cast they had. Look who they had playing Anderson Dawes. I mean, they had to cut down on all these cast members. Well, they didn't appear in the book in some points, but Anderson Dawes is an important character that I would have put in more. I would have put in a lot more. Guy was
that actor, and that actor is incredible.
Was he even in this season?
No, he hasn't been in the show since season 2.
He's mentioned as like a power player, but yeah, he's not really like
they mentioned
around. Yeah, I wanted to say something that you maybe struck a thought. There was something we were discussing. It was like the other thing that was so stupid about the like deposing of the UN Secretary General or whatever, was like they basically were like, we need to blow up Palos or not. There's more than two options. Like I was like, how come no one's even discussing like a marine incursion or something like that, or a tactical strike or a blockade? We don't just like either bomb a country or we don't bomb it. There's lots of diplomacy. There's other ways to handle like a threat. It was just so narrow. It was just like, oh, we either blow, I guess we can't blow it up. Oh, it's bad to blow things up. Like, oh my God.
Yeah, seeing that they were on a constant state of a Cold War with Mars, they probably always had ships in that area that you could have pulled that. Yeah, it could have been some black ops, you know, and you could have gotten at least intelligence out of it.
Yeah, something. Or just had a more complex discussion, I think I would have appreciated more. It was just so binary.
Yeah, it was. It was there to show girl power. And again, you have a better sense in the book, which was written prior to 2015, which is a very important date in entertainment. You got a better sense in the book that there's just mass chaos, and it was impossible to not all our communications are set up, and Earth is draining everybody's resources. And there's a big relief effort. There was like efforts from people in the belt and Mars to bring relief to Earth for the first time that they don't talk about.
Nope.
So, yeah, they missed a lot of opportunities.
Yeah, no, Jake's pointed that out a lot. Mars is a total non-player in this whole season, and it's a gaping hole. It's a gaping hole. Hey, Gary, if you need to get going, my friend.
The bug out, my friend. I'm on a time limit. I'm sorry.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Dude,
thanks for having me on. It was great. And I'm glad it turned out to be the finale because, dude.
Yeah.
Oh, what happened? Yeah. Oh, it's just, is the Orville next? Is the Orville going to be?
No. 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 Don't say that, Gary, please. I'm telling these guys to stay frosty all the fucking time, and I don't want to think about the Orville going this way.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
I'm sorry.
I don't think anything's safe. I would, expect the worst. I mean, I don't watch the Orville, but I mean, I expect the worst. I mean, look, it happened with The Expanse. I thought this show was impervious to it. You know, it was like you saw side by side really woke contributors not making their show woke, and I'm like, I think this show is above it. I was wrong. It's not.
They were for a while, and maybe they finally bent the knee. That's maybe what it is. It's like, you know what? There's some people out there on Twitter saying you're not woke enough. Better work on that. Yeah. You know, and that might be it.
It could be, but it is absolutely possible that it's sticking with this little channel Nerdrotic. Yeah. If this was just their way of minimizing Alex, it could easily recover next season.
It could. The actor playing Bull is a good actor. He's a good actor.
He's in Con Air.
Drummer, I can't believe I'm saying this about a woman. Drummer getting cucked was terrible.
It was.
Drummer, like, you didn't need to do that. Like, she is such a great character, and like
one of the best. She's my favorite. I've said that on so many reviews. She's my favorite character in this show.
When you hear interviews with the actress and she doesn't have that voice at all, she's like, "Hey, how you doing?"
I know,
she's a little girl voice, and you're like, "Where does that voice come from?
Where's that badass?" Yeah, she's the shit. Well, Gary, I mean, seriously, this is like an honor, man. So thank you so much. Like, you've brought us all together, and I mean, literally, you have brought the three of us together, and it's, I mean, hours and hours of content. I praise you all day. I'm a big fan, man. So thank you so much for coming on. This was awesome.
Thanks for having me on. Let's do it again.
This guy is responsible for most of our interest in this show, people, in case you were wondering. I don't attack you for anything that's gone bad because there was so much good, Gary. Thank you.
Oh, Draco, I'm going to get so many I told you so's in my next live stream.
Well,
get out of the way. Draco, okay.
That's hilarious.
So all right, guys. Take care. Subscribe to all these guys. They're brilliant guys. And hopefully, this show at least has a chance. It has a chance to get better. So.
I hope so. See you soon. Thanks, man.
Thanks, Gary.
Well, that was fucking awesome.
It was. It's like, So I hate to make it seem that I'm just following Gary out the door, but we are at a couple of hours, and I do actually have to get up for work in the morning, Matt.
That's all right, brother. That's all right, man. That's all good. We had 2 hours. It flew by because it was super exciting, super charged. So yeah, man. If you guys make sure you subscribe over to Jake D's channel. I guess now that the Expanse is over, we're not going to be doing these weekly things, but
we'll figure something else out.
Figure something out. Yeah, we'll cover something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's good to see you.
We need some reason to get together and drown our sorrows in our ale.
Yeah, in our ale, and our flagons of ale. Yeah, we can just wrap up. I mean, we always do 2 hours. We did 2 hours.
Yep.
Just wrap up. This was a chat. Thank you guys so much for all your contributions, even though you don't agree with me, some of you, and I don't know. That's unacceptable.
We're about 2/3 to 1/3, and the 1/3 is agreeing heavily with you, Matt.
No, I know. I'm just fucking around. I was watching the chat. Normally, guys, we're way more active with the chat. I just like Gary's here. You know what I mean? We gotta.
Well, quite honestly, the chat was flowing about 10 times faster than it usually does.
It's like 75
Gary caused it.
We're not as used to dealing with a fast chat as most streamers.
I know. I was trying to be cool, but I was like, at times, like, that was real. I was like, fuck, that's Gary's here. Shit, that's awesome. Well, listen, I mean, Tracy, back off about the woke. I'm sorry. I gotta call it when I see it. I mean, that's part of what we do. It's part of what I do anyway. I mean, I think it's important. And I understand why it can be, it can turn you off, but I just, I don't know. Got to call it when we see it. But you guys are great. And, normally like to highlight more what you're saying. You guys are saying some great stuff. I just, couldn't get to it as much today. But thank you for watching, as always.
Absolutely. Appreciate everybody being here. Matt, as always, thank you for having me on. It has been a pleasure covering this show with you. And we'll definitely be doing this again for season 6. And,
Indeed.
We could very well be covering how the show righted the ship and got back on track after.
That would be great.
After the
still possible.
They're talented enough to do it.
This was all about Cassanvar, and they are talented enough to right this ship.
100%.
They've shown it. We know they can do this.
Totally
we know they can improve upon material. Let's hope.
Yes.
But
those of you that can hope, there's a lot of hope in that chat. There's a lot of hope.
There's a lot of hope, and I love that. It's like we don't want to let it go. We love that's why we're all here. We love the Expanse, and that's what's bonding us, and that's why we're talking about it for 2 hours on a Tuesday night. We're in love with this show, and it feels good to be in love with the show. And look, I don't hope this doesn't come across pessimistic or shitty, because I'm just trying to observe and call it as I see it. I want it to be great. I love this show. I don't want it to be bad. I want it to be the best show on TV, and it has been up until recently. So I believe you. I don't get any pleasure out of this. This is just me reporting on what I see. But anyway, love you guys.
I hope that everybody that's the way we all feel about this. We put so much love into this thing that when the thing that you love, as you have seen with so many things recently, when the thing that you love has things inserted into it that are poisoning it and killing it, you want to call those things out. You want to drag them into the light and say, look at this thing. This thing should shrivel on the vine because it is destroying the thing we love. And that's why we got to bring it up.
100%. 100%. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us. Make sure you sub to these two rock stars, Jake D, Draco. If you're not subscribed to Nerdrotic, get on over there as well. And thanks, guys. Thanks a lot. Appreciate you guys hanging. And we'll see you all in the next one. Have a great night.